27 minutes after 7. Good to have you with us here on the midweek edition of GNT. That's Gareth and Tamola, by the way. In case you've forgotten what we do on a Wednesday between 7 and 8, we drag either a willing or unwilling participant into ST1 here at eNCA to have a nice long hour chat with them. This morning, and I would like to say willingly, is Herman Mashaba, still with us this morning, ActionSA leader and former Joburg mayor as well. Can we talk about foreign nationals for a moment? Operation Dudula, the protests with the trucking industry, the taxi industry. I can keep going, but it's something I have to take a breath.
Very important subject matter to discuss because, South Africans, prior to my pronouncement on the 1st of December 2016, South Africans were too scared because anytime you raise your voice around foreign nationals, I tell you, they will unleash attacks, insults, and so forth. But when I was the mayor, I used that privilege of being a mayor and the statute to ensure that I protect our constitution, I protect the sovereignty of our country. Here is it today. I'm so really pleased that I've actually given South Africans the freedom to exercise our constitutional freedom to discuss issues that are evil in our society. So South Africa, it's a foreign sovereign country with borders, with a constitution that regulates how people must come in and out of the country. And I've always been consistent, even when the ANC went to report me to the Human Rights Commission for xenophobic tendencies. Fortunate enough, allowed and provided every evidence, all the statements that I've said. I've always maintained, and I maintain it even today. South Africa was built at the back of migrants for the last 300-400 years. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And there's no way anyone can ever undo that. You can't unscramble this. So the only way South Africa can make it is for us to continue attracting people of the world to come here. But they must come here legally, and when they're here, they must respect our laws. I think this is contained in our constitution.
Do you accept the way that Operation Dudula, for example, is doing it? Because they're getting a lot of negative attention, positive attention as well, but negative attention. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, most of the stuff that they're doing are genuine. I mean, honestly, for anyone to disregard them as if they don't have concerns, they've got genuine concerns. The only way which I have openly expressed my dissatisfaction, and I actually wrote a press statement to that effect when they started going from house to house, stopping people in the streets. I said, guys, I think you will distract your agenda, because there are people out there, there are forces out there who are direct beneficiaries of this illegality. They will use this against you. I said, please, continue raising this matter. The problem lies with the South African government. The problem lies with the Home Affairs. The problem lies with our criminal justice system, because I know when I was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, you arrest someone not because he's a foreigner, but you discover in the process that he's a foreigner. It's in the country illegally for all manner of crime, for murder or for rape, for house robbery and so forth. As a city, you run a metro, the police, so your competency is obviously it's crime prevention. Right. You arrest a murderer with no documentation in the country. We don't know how they came. You give them, obviously, to SAPS and the National Prosecuting Authority. A few weeks later, the very same person is out in the streets. That is something that I've raised. And every time you raise this matter, they would obviously unleash insults against me. But it has helped.
Has uncovered, Mr. Mashaba, that some of their officials are definitely involved. I know there was a story circulating about a label from Bangladesh, only to find out that that person has been receiving sort of like a South African ID with a South African black name illegally, and therefore an official from Home Affairs will be facing the disciplinary hearing. But I want to talk about how this issue is now affecting economic activity. We've seen this even with truck drivers. Busa spoke to us saying they want government to deal with this because they're worried about the hundreds of millions that are lost just on the Van Rynen's Pass because of these blockades. How do you think actually an intervention would assist here? And what does that intervention even look like?
Look, I think if you look at it from a historical point of view, why did it really happen in the first place? And why did ANC unleash insults against anyone who spoke about this, including getting so-called human rights lawyers, so-called analysts? You know, you've had analysts, so-called analysts, coming in your program talking about professors of universities promoting lawlessness of South Africa, actually destroying the sovereignty of this country. I believe for as long as you've got the ANC in government, I cannot really see how this problem is going to be resolved. I just want to make a commitment to South Africans. Come 2024, we are going to remove ANC democratically out of government. And this illegal immigration matter is going to be one of our key priorities, because we cannot allow South Africa to be a dumping place of expired goods and counterfeit goods. You know how South Africa has lost credibility in the eyes of big international brands, because brands are brought into this country by these international criminal syndicates. This hijacked buildings in the city of Johannesburg and other places that turn into factories to put the labels of genuine trademarks. So, and these big companies are aware about this. When I was a mayor, they used to involve me. Cigarettes manufacturing, proper manufacturing businesses in South Africa were destroyed by illicit cigarettes brought into our country. We've observed where these people actually go out in public with ammunition that our South African Defence Force does not have. That's why we are not really safe as a country. And when you address it, you live up to even professors. That's why our education system, I sometimes feel, it's so rotten that this is a professor teaching kids, our youth in universities to break the law.
Could we just talk about, because we can, there's a lot we want to talk about, Mr. Mashaba, and I have spoken about Operation Dadula. I do want to get your thoughts now. We have to talk about the Phala Phala farm. And the president and the alleged missing money. Just briefly on that, because there's other things we'd like to talk about as well, and we could have you here all day, but we won't have the time. What are your thoughts on that briefly? How has this been handled? John Steenhuisen saying he's talking to the FBI. Is that going too far? What should the president have done? What do you make of the whole situation?
Well, I think it's really very disturbing for a country in a constitutional democracy. In fact, last night at 9:30, I watched one of the international media houses had half an hour discussion around corruption in South Africa and how our current president, because the world was under impression once Jacob Zuma is out, Cyril Ramaphosa came into office on the ticket of fighting corruption. Here is it, the millions of US dollars found in mattresses. I see people are buying mattresses now as banking institutions. 2 years later, the matter was not reported. The president, instead of relying on our criminal justice system to deal with this matter, he uses mafia type of thing. They torture people, they silence them, buy them to really buy their silence. I think it's as a country, for me, as a South African, this matter been discussed at an international level already. I think Cyril Ramaphosa has really caused so much damage to us. And I can tell you, Tumelo and Gareth, Cyril Ramaphosa did not only cause damage to South Africa, he caused damage to the black race. Because for forever, for the last 500 years or whatever, you know, the reason why we were taken as slaves, the reason why apartheid was imposed on us, because they've always used the excuse that blacks are untrustworthy, they're crooks, and so forth and so forth. And when Mandela took over, You know, one of the pride I had was that as a black, my race is going to be respected. Do you remember Nelson Mandela's era? We were the envy of the world. The entire African continent looked at us, upon us. Black America, United States, blacks all over the world. It says, here's someone who's going to revive the pride of a black race. Here is it 28 years later, including Cyril Ramaphosa, who was responsible for the promotion of this constitution. He's the one actually in the leadership of the destruction of our constitution and causing so much damage to this race, so that people are saying, no, these people are naturally corrupt. And I think it is important for us as black people, when someone does something like this, please, we must avoid keeping quiet, because if we do, that means we are complicit.
So what are your thoughts then, with that being said, on, you know, state capture and the final report coming out? Do you have any confidence whatsoever that the president will act on it decisively, urgently, even now with the conversation around the Guptas and obviously the expectation to have them back to South Africa to account to some of the allegations against them? What are your thoughts on how the president then will handle this going forward? Because I think after so much money being spent on state capture as a commission and for it running so long, South Africans following it, and I think having fatigue over state capture, there's a desperate need now to have closure, and that closure is justice.
Yeah, well, you know, it's actually quite sad, because, you know, some people are really excited about this. Even to me in particular, I would like to really see this matter being addressed. But if I look at our criminal justice system, particularly the NPA, I don't really believe we're going to really see any prosecutions in the next few years. I'm not. It will be a miracle, and I don't really believe in miracles. So I'm not really so. So for me right now, it is just the question of really projecting Cyril Ramaphosa to really be against the corruption. But he was part of this corruption for many years. The 9 wasted years that he's spoken about, he was right inside that same house where corruption was corrected. It's you know, for me, the other day, they wrote an opinion piece, and I've had interviews, and I still really maintain you can't have a security challenges in a prison, and you use prisoners to sort out that weakness in the security arrangement. So the solution to South Africa's problem, you've got to remove the ANC and put in new people. But what is important for South Africans to understand, to really learn about democracy, because democracy can only succeed when civil society take interest in politics. Take interest in politics not before really going into a political office. Making sure that every time there's an election, you go out and vote politicians in, and in the event they fail you, 2.5 years later, you vote them out. That's the only time I
The only
believe
problem is that
we'll be able
people don't go and vote politicians out. What happens is we saw the apathy. They just don't go back and vote at all.
Yeah,
what do you do with it? They just couldn't care enough to even go and vote.
Because if you look at our educational offering over the last 28 years, it's actually quite sad that 80% of public schools in this country are dysfunctional. The kind of education that is being offered to majority of our people, it's making our people unemployable. You have international drug syndicates pumping billions of drugs into our communities to destroy them, to just make them live. They are lifing. People are literally lifing. They actually don't really look at themselves as powerful instruments to actually change the political landscape of this country by going to vote, because they think they want people who have failed them to deliver. They don't understand. We, as South Africans, we must accept. As long as we refuse to accept that, ANC is not there to serve society. ANC is there to serve themselves. If we can accept that, we live in peace and make sure that whoever comes into office, you hold them accountable. You don't have to give a politician 28 years. You don't have to give politicians 5 years in this country. What I like about our constitutional framework is that as voters, every 2.5 years, we've got an opportunity to punish politicians. Look at, we just had last year, November, we had local government elections. In 18 months' time or so, we're going to have national elections. So you can imagine voting what it does. It makes you can be unemployed, you can be physically disabled or so forth, but you are powerful. The day of election, you become one of the most powerful human beings to shape the future of
I just want to ask, Gareth, if you may allow me. You mentioned, voters having, that power, obviously, to make that change, realizing I suppose, the discrepancies within the ANC. Is it only the voters? I'm seeing Hesse Lolidira has joined ActionSA, now the new chairperson in the Limpopo province. Are we seeing that even internally ANC members are leaving the party?
Yes, I'm excited with this, and I think when a mutual friend introduced me to Mr. Lidiga, because I was under really pressure since late last year. Every weekend I watch on social media branches being opened in Limpopo. I said, my goodness. And I was not ready. We could not identify a suitable candidate to be the provincial chairperson. And a mutual friend introduced me to this guy. But obviously, I must declare, I'm suspicious of ANC people. So I had to really make sure that I do proper investigation, and I've really found him to really be a wonderful person, shares the same values as I do. And he's committed to ensure that we can deal with corruption. We can really be public servants. ActionSA as a political party, it's a vehicle that people must use to change their lives. If you serve as a public rep for ActionSA, please don't serve the party, serve society. Put society ahead of the political party. If it means the party asks you to compromise your value, move away from the party, and I can tell I'll be the first one to actually defend you, because I'm not in this business to make friends with anyone. I'm not in this business to really serve my stomach. I know I have a privileged position to be in that space. But one thing that I've learned in my life, because I know what poverty is I was born in poverty. If you want God to look after you, be a good human being. Long term, you will be paid. And yes, you will see, hopefully in another month or so, I'm going to announce another ANC person to really be a provincial chairperson of one of the provinces.
Party members as well, Mr. Mashaba, while you're busy gathering ANC party members as well, you're having to deal with the issue of the MMC and Nkululeko Mbundu facing allegations of corruption as well. Before I say goodbye to you, we're running out of time. What are we going to do there?
I'm very proud of Nkuli. I mean, you can imagine how I convinced this guy coming from the private sector, taking a salary, almost 40% less than what you used to earn in the private sector. But because when I started engaging him, he had a social conscience, and I convinced him to come and join. And he's doing such a fantastic job. I mean, he's giving the hyenas chest pains. I can imagine, Gareth, you are being charged. I don't know what law in the world would exist where you, as a political head of a department, people go and buy bread for 27 rands. You says, no, guys. But the bread, you can get it for 12 rands from the shops.
But
and then you get charged.
And then of meddling in municipal tender process.
Yes, that's what I'm just giving an example. That's exactly what happened with Nkuli. He is given a tender to sign, but he says, guys, it's not a bread as such. He says, but guys, no, don't really play this type of games with us. You can't really bring a bread. You want to buy bread for 7 rands and 27 rands, and you expect me to buy it. Bread, people buy it in the shops for 12 rands or so. He says, no, you go back. So if
so is this not meddling? This is oversight.
Yeah, and he must play that oversight. And I'm encouraging him. He's my hero. He's my star. To give them chest pains or go and lay criminal charges. I think for them laying this type of criminal charges, what it does, it gives us an opportunity to let society know how these cadres deployed by the ANC have really milked our country over many years. So I think for me, Nkuli, it's a star, it's a hero. He'll go down in history as one of the real fighters of corruption of the ANC, deep-rooted, where the ANC does not even have the shame go to National Treasury. National Treasury, before even actually studying and understanding the matter, says they must go and lay criminal charges against him. Let them go and lay criminal charges against him. Let this matter, if it goes into an open court of law, I can guarantee you, so civil society, residents of South Africa, taxpayers of this country, they're going to give him an award.
I just want to ask you this as well. I'm sure you've been following the news about, young 6-year-old Kaeletu Magatla going missing still in Soweto. EMS still searching for him after he's suspected to have fell into a manhole. And just when we speak about family receiving closure, you have been following the Lily Mine story for years now, trying to give the family closure, trying to get to the bottom of what's happening. Any updates you can share with us?
Well, yesterday I was at the Minister of the Minerals and Energy, Resources and Energy to hand over a memorandum to Melo. It's actually, this is a very, very sad, dark side of ANC's 28-year history. Pritin Kambule, Solomon Yandere and Yvonne Nisi went down the belly of the earth, 70 meters down. The government of the ANC made a pronouncement to us that that container cannot be retrieved. Fortunate enough, when the family contacted me, when I was running the People's Dialogue, I drove all the way to Barberton because this thing didn't make sense. When they related to me, I said, look, the best thing I can do is to really get good legal intervention. My brief to the lawyers, I said, this was what related to me. Let me call the families and the former miners. I said, please, I'm not a lawyer. Let's go for the department to tell us, to give us evidence of what informed their decision to say that that container cannot be retrieved. Because you can't take a decision at a Shebini and Saxon World that the container is not retrieved. I said, I'm telling you, I said to the lawyers, I have a big suspicion there's no evidence like that. And we went, that legal matter has cost us in excess of 1.5 million directly, not including the money that we help the family from time to time, as we are aware that they are camping. Up to today, the government has now admitted, because they failed, because in the beginning they were refusing to give us the papers, because we said, but you took a decision, you said to this country that that container cannot be retrieved. Where's the evidence? So they played games until we applied for PI application. Eventually, on the day when we needed to go to court, they delivered tons of papers to our lawyers, took our lawyers a couple of days at a cost to us. Eventually, there was no evidence like that, and then they admitted that there was no evidence. They just, I don't know what informed them.
It was a case of drowning you in paperwork, essentially what it was. Mr. Mashaba, we need to say goodbye to you, and it's been great to have you on. There's a lot to talk about. I think we got through quite a bit of it, and appreciate your time in coming to speak to us. We were going to ask, what's the quickest way and easiest way to contact you? Well, we told you. You can just tweet us at eNCA. And also,
anyone wanting to contact us, quite easy. Just go contact me through ActionSA's website or our email address, actionsa.org.za.
You tweet
info at actionsa.org.za.
Or you can find
or you can reach me on my Twitter handle at Herman Mashaba.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you, of course.
Thank you so much for the
some
opportunity.
time with us. That is, of course, ActionSA leader Herman Mashaba.
Yeah, there was a lot to get through. We really appreciate all the comments and questions. We try to get through as many as we can with Herman Mashaba.